Okay, I shall hand over to Kim.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all good.
Yeah.
First of all, it's lovely to meet you all. I have been wanting to be involved with PIP for a long time, just for whatever reason, you know, life gets in the way, you know how it is. But I recently reached out to Sam just to say, you know, I've got some time, got some space, and yeah, I'd love to be involved. And it's kind of seeing you all here is actually a really kind of cathartic experience for me. I've met very, very few people with Poland syndrome in my life. It's obviously not kind of a major disability. There's not lots of people with it, and even as a doctor, I've never ever treated anyone with it either. And competing in the Paralympics as well for the last sort of 10 years, I've still never met anyone. So seeing you all here is lovely, and I'm sure some of you have Poland syndrome, some of you have kids with Poland syndrome, and I think the main reason that I wanted to reach out and to be involved was so that I could, you know, offer my experiences, hopefully offer help, reassurance, guidance, you know, anything that you guys would benefit from. I hope that I can help with, really, and then just to reach out to the community all over the world, you know, people with Poland syndrome. I think these kind of things are really, really important, just to help us all kind of come together, really, because like I said, the chances of crossing over in normal life is probably quite small. So yeah, I'm going to just go through a bit about my story, I guess, what I've been through, my experiences, and then we can open things up and just have a chat in general. It's just a great opportunity for me, especially just to get to know you all and see what wonderful people you all are. So I am 28. I live in London, and I started working as a doctor about 4 years ago now. So I graduated from Leeds University in 2018, I think, having studied there for about 6 years. I was born without any pec muscles on the right side, so that was major and minor, so no muscles there, and no fingers on my right hand. So I had the double toe transplant, which I guess you guys are aware of as one of the treatments they can give, just to give you opposable digits so that you can grip and hold and do all that kind of thing. And that was done by Professor K in Leeds, who's one of the leading hand surgeons in the country at the moment. I think he's sort of coming close to retirement now, but he's still, you know, doing lots of amazing things. He did the first hand transplant in Britain, and he's still operating, I believe, today, which I guess some of you might have come across him at some point. I had the operation when I was 2 years old, and I've not had any surgery since. So I never did any of the sort of the lat dorsi muscle grafts or anything like that to give you any of the musculature on the right side. I just decided that wasn't for me. So that initial surgery is the only one I've had, and I've kind of just been living with it ever since. Growing up, I guess I was very, very lucky. I had really supportive parents who pushed me into sport, always wanted me to be involved, because I think it's something that I'm quite passionate about, is that sort of young disabled people often don't necessarily get the push that they need to really get into elite sport or pursue the careers that they might want to pursue, because it is easy for when you've got a child with a disability just to sit back a little bit, don't push them quite as hard, just kind of go easy on them, if you like. And sometimes actually they need a bit of pushing in the right direction, and just that reassurance that they can kind of go out and do anything that they want to do, despite having those kind of minor disabilities that people with Poland syndrome have. Growing up, I played lots of racket sports, tennis, badminton, but table tennis was kind of the one that always stood out for me. I don't really know why. It's kind of a weird sport to be into, but I really loved it from a really young age. And from the age of about 10 onwards, I was competing internationally for Great Britain in the able-bodied category. Got to the age of 15, 16, and I started to fall behind some of my peers. I was kind of one of top 2 or 3 in the country at that point. And as the older boys started to develop physically, I started to struggle a little bit with my balance, wasn't really sure why, and ended up getting dropped from the national team around that age. And it was at that point that a gentleman from Sheffield, who I used to play just local league with, he's got cerebral palsy, and he came up to me one day after a match and just said, look, why don't you get involved with parasport? I think, you know, it's something you'd be really interested in. Wasn't something I'd ever thought of, sort of having grown up, like I said, not knowing anyone else with Poland syndrome, knowing very few people with limb deformities or limb differences, never really sort of saw myself as or categorized myself, if you like, as a disabled person. So I didn't even think that the Paralympics would be an option for me. But anyway, following from that conversation, I got classified, and sort of 10 years later, the rest of that's history, really. And I've played in 2 Paralympic Games, London and Rio, where I finished in the top 8 in both of them. I'm the Commonwealth silver medalist currently, and Britain's #1 table tennis player in my class. And we are currently training for Tokyo, which is obviously been delayed because of a little virus that I'm sure we're all aware of. Aside from all that, I am also a doctor, as I said. I studied alongside training, so I took years out here and there to play full time. Lived in Slovenia, spent some time in Sweden, living kind of just different places, training full time with their national teams, and also lived in Sheffield training full time, which is where I'm from. And then when I started work, I worked at a 50% rota. So I was 50% in the hospitals, 50% training, trying to get ready for Tokyo. And I guess the plan for me was to play Tokyo and then probably retire from sport. But obviously that's been delayed a year. So I'm still training now, and I'm due to fly out in about a week and a half's time for the Olympic qualifier. So need to put in a good performance there, and hopefully I can qualify for the Paralympic Games in Tokyo. I've had an amazing experience overall. I've been very, very lucky in my life. My parents were very, very supportive. I didn't really get bullied at school. I had a lot of really great friends, but I did come up against some challenges having a disability, and I guess this was part of the reason, or probably the main point as to why I wanted to be involved, because I didn't want kids who maybe didn't have the same support that I had or the same luck that I had, meeting the right people at the right times. I didn't want them to kind of go through life not necessarily fulfilling their potential. And I think having access to groups like this is absolutely amazing. You know, you meet people from all different walks of life who have been through all different kinds of things, and it gives you that confidence and that reassurance that, you know, you can go out and do anything that you want to do. I remember even applying for medical school, being asked on multiple occasions by older doctors, you know, do you think this is the right path for you? Are you going to be capable of being a doctor in the long run? Have you thought about, you know, are you going to be physically able in a cardiac arrest situation to be able to deliver appropriate treatment? And I think those kind of questions to a 17, 18-year-old who's got a disability, they're really tough questions. I mean, you know, I didn't know if I was going to be capable or not. And like I said, I was lucky that I have parents who just told me to ignore all of that and crack on with things to get to kind of where I am today, which I'm really, really proud of. I think, as I said, this kind of talk was just to, you know, let you know about the story that I've had, the experiences that I've had, and for you to kind of be able to feel like you can ask any questions, even if it's from a medical point of view. I have a bit of experience in kind of the plastic surgery side of things, having done a bit of work with them, and having got quite a lot of friends in that kind of community. I guess what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do as well by working with Sam, is offer my services, I guess, to be that medical representative, hopefully at conferences, to kind of get Poland syndrome more recognised across the world, because as we know, it is a very small thing. It doesn't even necessarily have its own category, if you like. It's put into like limb deformities when they're auditing and when they're gathering information. So we have very little information across the UK, just for example, that's where I am, on how many people we have with Poland syndrome, whether that's 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, you know, we don't necessarily know that. And I think what Sam's trying to do, hopefully I'll be able to help as well, is build a database basically of who has what, and then we can take that to NHS England and Public Health England to say, look, this many people have it. It might be worth this investment of time to offer you guys some support, really, especially with young parents who have just had kids, for example, with Poland syndrome. There's not a lot of information out there, and it can be, you know, really, really scary time, difficult to know what to do, difficult to know who the right people are, all that kind of thing. And I think Sam was explaining to me a little bit, looking at, I think in Italy they've got a model where they have an MDT approach where they'll have days where you can take your child or yourself who's got Poland syndrome, touch base with whether that's a plastic surgeon, a physiotherapist, an orthopedic surgeon, just to have a look, assess you, see if there's anything that they can do to help make things better. For example, with the muscle grafts and the operations are all changing, year by year, they're getting more and more advanced. And if there's anything that can be done to help. I know that with the operation that I had, they're now I think trying to do tripod operation. So instead of just giving 2 digits, they give you a third one. So basically it gives you this movement, which having a thumb is obviously really, really important. It gives you that extra plane of movement and it makes the whole pincer grip a lot more effective. And you can kind of do a lot more, I guess, if you like. So, I mean, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I've kind of like whizzed through a lot of stuff and kind of brushed over everything and my career and where I'm going and all that kind of thing. But I guess I didn't want to talk for too long and bore you guys too much, because I think it's what would be more interesting is for us to kind of have a chat about things and for me to gain the experience of what you guys have been through, not just myself. I think long term, what I'm hoping to do, I'll share it with you, is I'm hoping to go to at some point to meet people in the UK, do some kind of day where I'll be able to be there. And I'd quite like to do a project from a medical point of view on patient experience, just so we can get an idea of what people with Poland syndrome struggle with, like the things that, whether that's from a mental health point of view, whether it's a physical health point of view, the main, and try and like kind of draw out some of the main problems that people with Poland syndrome go through in their life. Because then obviously once we have that, we can take that further and see what we can do, interventions that can be done within an NHS setting, I guess, if you like, to make things better and to help people with Poland syndrome. That's kind of me. I hope it was interesting, and I hope that you guys have some questions for me. I'm obviously happy to answer everything, but yeah, I didn't want to talk for too long, because I think getting to know you guys and answer a few questions would be the right thing to do. So yeah, I will open it up to the floor.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kim. It was really interesting and
That's all right.
Amazing to have you as someone with Poland syndrome and a doctor now, on our side and in our corner. It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like I said, I've always wanted to help, and I didn't know necessarily where the right place was to go. I did a little bit of work with Reach before, but I'm not kind of touch base with them. And I guess I was hoping to get involved a little while ago. I was explaining to Sam, obviously the last 18 months have just been a write-off, especially for me. I worked on COVID wards for 5 months, and then I worked on A&E for 6 months. So it's kind of all been a bit overwhelming, I guess. But now things are settling down a bit, fingers crossed, and the vaccine seems to be doing its job. So hopefully now I have a bit more time to kind of delve into some of my other passions, which would be nice.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll open it up to the floor then. There's a couple of questions and comments in the chat after as well.
Yeah.
Nan, I saw your mute come off. Did you want to go?
Yeah, but I just first of all want to thank you. We need doctors who know what's going on. And thank you for your work. I'm in New York, but thank you for the work you've done on COVID this year, because our doctors and nurses are our heroes. So thank you. I think I'm 76 years old and have just discovered that I have all kinds of issues that I didn't know were related to Poland syndrome, because the doctors never know anything.
Very true.
They just discovered I have scoliosis and I'm having trouble walking or going out and doing things. So I can't travel, which is making me nuts. And I think that's what's so disturbing for me right now. I wrote something on the Poland syndrome page for the first time about me, because I have had a pretty lucky life as far as my parents were helpful. I had great friends. I managed to get married a few times. I have a grandson. I never was really bullied badly. I always learned how to kind of stop it. And all of a sudden I feel disabled, which I never felt. I always felt I could figure my way around something. I compensated, I guess, what my recent doctor said badly. And so what maybe we need help with is to learn how to compensate properly so we don't end up old people with problems that could have been corrected or not created if we had compensated properly. So I'm very frustrated. And so this worked out perfectly because I have an first appointment with a chiropractor next week, and the first appointment with a how do you say it?
Physiotherapist?
No, I can't say it.
One of them.
One of them that deals, instead of getting operated on, they look at things medically.
Yeah.
And I know they won't know anything about Poland syndrome. My internist, I always tell him, give me your medical students. So he always has them visit me when I go, so I can sit there and say, okay, Poland syndrome, and try to educate them. And of course, nobody's ever heard of it.
No, I mean, I know very little.
I was in my mid-50s when I was in Kyrgyzstan for the summer studying, and a very nice woman who was a biologist from South Africa was having dinner with me one night and said, you know what you have? And I said, no. Does it have a name? And she told me what it was. I didn't know there was anything that was named. The only thing they dealt with was my hand. I have very early surgeries, but it works. So what? It's no thing of beauty, but it functions, and my grandson loves it. So, you know, every child is different. He thinks I'm Nemo. So that's really what's happened to me. So I'm looking for any help from anybody with how to deal with Poland syndrome in old age, because I see more issues coming. I really do. And here in the States, there's no more, I don't think, interest in it than anywhere else. So with that, I will leave the stage and open it up.
Well, now, can I say you're a mere child in this issue?
Oh, yeah, I know. You're the old man and I'm the old woman.
As most people know, I was only diagnosed 2 years ago, and when I was 84. So I've lived with it throughout my life, and it's not been a problem, because one of the most important things is that you learn to adapt. There are many ways of doing things and doing them differently. Now, like Kim, sport to me was wonderful because it gave me an opportunity to prove myself. When you're at school, you're the last one to be put into any team unless you're good enough. So you have to work that much harder to prove yourself. And, you know, I can play pretty well any game, because I think one of the compensating factor is that you've got good eye and hand coordination. So, you know, give me a ball, I can play table tennis, snooker, cricket, hockey. I've done the lot, and it's a great avenue to improve yourself and to prove yourself to other people. Anyway, that's my lot. So,
I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I think obviously with the point of kind of all these things that we're doing is for people like yourself, Ron and Nan, is you know, you went so long without a diagnosis, and that's a really, really kind of big problem that we need to kind of resolve and try and nip in the bud early, because, you know, we need to know, obviously we don't want to label children and all there's all this kind of thing, but knowing what's wrong so we can offer the help so that we can avoid kind of situations like Nan's in, unfortunately. And I do really feel for you. You know, I train every day with Paralympians, so people who have had car accidents, for example, and who have gone from being able-bodied to obviously in a much more kind of acute and stark way, but being able-bodied to disabled, you know, in the blink of an eye. And that transition is a really difficult thing. And I think especially when Poland syndrome isn't that well known about. It's hard, you know, doctors just will generally look at you and say, you need some physiotherapy. That's about it, and that's all that they'll offer. They won't know what physiotherapy, they won't know what's important. I mean, for myself, I've been, like I said, very lucky. I've been in elite sport for 12 years now, so I've had access to, you know, the best physios around, and we've done a lot of work thinking more long term for myself physically, where I might have problems, and often the back is one of the things that happens. Without the pectoral muscle, the shoulders start to cave in a little bit. Your shoulder muscles get very stiff. Some of them get hypertrophied, so they get a bit too big because they're compensating for not having that pectoral muscle there. And over time, that can create that stiffness down the back and cause those problems. I don't know if scoliosis is a known, you know, byproduct of Poland syndrome, whether they're related or not. Someone might have a bit more knowledge about that. I think it might be. I think I've got a little bit of scoliosis in my spine as well, one of the doctors said. So yeah, and I mean, from what I've seen so far, giving access for children to have that access to some physiotherapy, specialized physiotherapy when you're young, to help build up those muscles, but mainly to help you gain knowledge, because I think that knowledge is the most important thing. You know, if you get to 50, 60 years old, you're not someone who necessarily, you know, goes to the gym all the time and knows all the exercises, and you know, you're not suddenly then going to be going to the gym every day and doing these things that you're like trying to read about on YouTube, because it's, you know, it's not a safe thing to do, and it's not something that anyone will do. If you can grow up with a sort of a small knowledge of rehab exercises, things that would be helpful for your kid in the long run, and that child develops with that knowledge, and as they get older, you know, it's something they should be thinking about all the time. You know, maybe I'll do my exercises today, and you know, all that kind of thing. It can be a really powerful tool to help keep them fit and well. I've seen anyway through Paralympic sport, we've got guys who've got really terrible disabilities, you know, crippling arthritis, the whole wide range, and doctors were telling them, you know, you're going to be in a wheelchair at the age of whatever, 20 or 30, and you know, they're still playing you know, international sport all over the world, because of exercise, because they've made themselves as physically fit as possible. And in the long run, I think with Poland syndrome, it's easy to look at it and just say, well, you know, it's not a degenerative condition. You have what you have, and you'll just live a life with it after it's finished. But actually, there are byproducts.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because if you take one link out of the body, eventually the body's going to crumple. That's normal. And I guess for us to have that knowledge to intervene early doors and try and, you know, fix those things for young people will give them a much better quality of life for a lot longer. But it's good of you to share your story, and that's really interesting.
That was actually my question about the scoliosis, because I was born with Poland syndrome on my left side. My arm is not involved, but I'm missing the pectoral muscle and 3 ribs. I have a severe scoliosis, 58 degrees. Anything over 10 is considered severe. Solitary left kidney, double uterus, all these things that are going on inside. And as I get older, I'll be 59 this year, and my mobility is getting less and less. The shoulder, like you said, it gets atrophied, and I can't move my arm, and just the whole thing, and not knowing anyone. I mean, are all these is this all Poland syndrome? Or do I have Poland syndrome and other things? You know, those are the questions that I have.
Yeah, I mean, medicine's always vague and grey, unfortunately, for us. You know, there's never an absolute in anything. I mean, I think you know, you might have a few different things going on. I think the movement in the arm, I don't know you, I've not seen you or assessed you, but I think the movement in the arm is probably most likely related to it. As I said, by taking that link out, those muscles they get slack and they get tired and they get stiff in the wrong places where they're trying to support the shoulder, basically. It's easy for me to say, you know, just go away, try some this, do this, try physio, try whatever. But actually, I think mentally kind of getting your head around it first, understanding why it's happening, and then going at it with a fresh head, because you're thinking, you know, I always found sometimes that if you're not really sure when the doctors tell you to do something or you go and try something, your heart's not really in it, because you're not convinced. You know what I mean? You're not
And
sure they've got.
I happen to be one of those kids that had parents that just wanted me to sit on a shelf.
Yeah.
My whole life, I didn't do anything because I was so afraid.
Yeah.
You know, if you do that, you're going to hurt yourself. If you play sports, you're going to hurt yourself. So I grew up really basically doing nothing physical.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, yeah, I was very lucky that I was pushed into sport. I mean, I did hurt myself. I've broken both toes and my arm playing sports, so I don't recommend doing that. But there's definitely safe. I ended up playing table tennis, which probably seemed like the safest option in the end. But definitely, yeah, you know, physical activity from a young age is better than any operation or any medical intervention or anything that kind of you can be given.
I know that now, unfortunately, but you know, in my 60s, there's nothing I can do about it. So putting it out there for kids who are just starting out, it's so important to get them moving.
Yeah.
And you know, don't be afraid.
I'd like to jump in if that's all right.
Go for it, yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Robbie. I'm dad to Rio, who's here ignoring us. He's got we're too noisy for him, but
Hi, Rio.
Rio, you say hi.
Hi, Rio.
So, I'll maybe get him later. I first of all, thank you to Sam really for setting all this up. I'm lucky that I joined the charity as a trustee this year, so hopefully get more involved and see more of all you guys. I'd like to sort of approach it from the mental side of it though. Kim, is there anything you think we could sort of say, you know, or anything you thought somebody could have said to you as a growing up as a child to try and sort of keep you from getting disheartened or anything like that, and like you say, pushing with sport and stuff? Is there anything you could maybe shine a light on anyone as a parent to keep them on the right track? And
you're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought I was alone.
Absolutely. I mean, do you know what? It's a really hard question for me to answer, because it'd be great if my mum was here and she could answer it for you, because my mum and dad did an amazing job. Like, as I said, growing up, I never felt like I was a disabled person. They managed to get that balance between kind of knowing that you are different, because I think that's important. It's, you know, you can't just think I am like everyone else, because you're not. There is a difference. But having that awareness of that, but also that it's not a negative thing, or necessarily something that's going to impact you or stop you from doing anything. You know, finding that balance was really important. And I mean, I remember it just being drummed into me that I could do anything that I wanted to do, that anything I set my mind to, really. And that's kind of what helped me the most, because there were people who told me, you know, you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, shouldn't be a doctor, you should whatever. And I did struggle with that, but like I said, I had really, really supportive kind of friends and family who made sure that I knew that wasn't the case, and always kind of backed me to make mistakes as well. I think that's the other important thing. You know, if you've got a kid who's set on something and they want to do something, and maybe you're thinking in your head, they're not sure about this, there might be a bit beyond them, might be really difficult, they might get bullied, whatever. If they're set on it, you can't stop them from doing it. You know, they have to get up and fall down themselves, and that's fine. And over time you develop that understanding of things that are going to be good, things that are going to be hard. You know, like I've done, you know, minor surgeries, and I can stitch really well. Like, there's very little with one good hand, if you like, and one hand that can balance things. There's very little you can't do, really. And that's important to know. I think, like, you'd expect, you know, say for a doctor working in A&E, whatever, you'd expect all that really fine work to be something that someone with one hand would really, really struggle with. But it just took me time to find solutions, I guess, to it. And they were very patient with me. My parents, I remember, like, even like learning to tie my shoe, like everything was just a bit more difficult, but they just took that time to make sure that I got it. You know, they never gave up. They never tried to, you know, figure out an easy way around things, you know, so I wouldn't have to learn to do something, I guess. It's hard, like I said, I have to put my mum on next time and see if she can help. But I think, you know, I think it can be a really tough thing, and the mental health side of things is something that I really believe shouldn't be ignored. it's a really tough, sometimes having those in-between disabilities can actually be really quite difficult. You know, you've got people who, say, in wheelchairs, for example, of something that's very clear, you know, and they tend to get, from my experience, like I said, having competed alongside people with a huge amount of disabilities, sometimes having those minor disabilities can be quite tough because you almost get overlooked a little bit. And people are kind of like, oh, like, you know, it's fine, you're just missing a few things, whatever, it's all right. But actually, no, you know, life can be much more difficult, and pain and all these things that get in the way. And whereas if you've got a more major problem, sometimes you get more support, basically, and there's more out there for you. I think it's definitely something to be accepting of, and that's why these groups are important. It's something that I wish I'd had, is to, you know, talk about some of these insecurities that I had when I was growing up. Like, I'm like looking in the mirror and seeing you're like a bit flat chested, and it's not something that got to me massively, but I remember as a kid looking and thinking I look different, I don't like it. But I had no one to talk to about it. You know, I talked to my parents, obviously, but no one who had been through it. And I think just being open and honest is the best way to manage things. You know, accepting if your child has those kind of things is, you know, not brushing it under the rug or whatever. It's kind of opening those conversations up to talk about it and to work your way through it, I suppose.
Yeah, don't be afraid to push rather than sort of be more conservative. Yeah,
Exactly.
I think so.
Brilliant.
I mean,
well, no, I mean, big respect for everything you've achieved, and thank you for everything you've done NHS wise as well.
That's all right.
Yeah, pleasure to speak to you. Thanks.
Yeah, you too. Nice to meet you.
Cheers.
I'll give you one clue, Robbie. Don't say you're lucky. Don't say you're lucky to him. My mother used to say, "You're lucky you have an arm."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would like, yeah, I know, but I'm entitled. And I had a doctor who finally said to me, "You can be lucky and unlucky at the same time."
Yeah.
So it's not this or that.
Yeah.
And you can try anything. My father was very careful. He always said, "You can try anything." He didn't say you can do anything. He said you can try anything. And there is a book I would like to suggest to you. It's very easy. He doesn't have to read it. It's called Uniquely Me. And it's a children's book that focuses on being unique. Everyone is unique. Everyone has something. Yes. And the book really, my grandson, I have my grandson reads it because I want him to feel, you know, to see that he's unique because he's half Asian. So that's a unique thing. It's not always about a disability.
Right.
Oh, brilliant.
So
Thank you.
That's my suggestion.
Well, I'll look that up. Thank you.
Welcome.
And I think one of the things was too that my parents always told me was that there are people much worse than you.
Oh.
And that always minimized how I was feeling. So I turned inward, and I suffered in silence basically because I felt like I was complaining where I shouldn't have been. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think yeah, that's a really difficult one when people say that, because it makes you feel like, you know, you shouldn't complain and whatever. And I remember when I graduated, and I'd never thought of it as kind of much of an achievement necessarily. I thought, you know, I just figured out, I was just like everyone else. You know, 300 other people in my year had just graduated, and I was just the same. And one of the dean of the med school pulled me aside and just said, like, just make sure you appreciate this moment, because what you've achieved is actually, you know, it's a really, really big thing. And I don't want, you know, I wanted to single you out and to talk to you and tell you that, because I think you should go away from this knowing that, you know, you have overcome something quite big. And I think it's important to, like they said, for your kids, Robbie, or whatever, it's for them to recognize that like I said, it's a delicate balance between, you know, not saying that it's not like, oh my God, it's amazing you've done that, but it's just so they have that, you know, that internal kind of awareness that what they have done is great. It's a big deal, you know, and it's not just a minor disability necessarily, and it's something that kind of it impacts you as much as it does, if that makes sense. whether that's a lot or whether that's a little. It doesn't matter whether you're just missing a few fingers or a muscle or whether you're in a wheelchair. It's, you know, it's all relative, I guess.
If there's some comments and questions on the side, Kim, if we can go to those. I think Pedro has unfortunately left, and he sadly said he's got the same condition, missing fingers, no pec muscle, and often gets bullied and called Lego character.
Bless him. That's sad.
It is. And do you know?
You get prosthetics to replace missing. I'm not sure, Pedro. I'm not sure you can get that.
Yeah.
They've not made much. They haven't made much headway with prosthetics. As far as I'm aware, I mean, I don't know if you guys know anything about it, but basically, I was chatting to a plastic surgeon, and he was saying the difficulty they have with prosthetics is it's nearly impossible to judge how, like, what's the word? Like the characteristic of a material. So, for example, if you're picking up a Coke can that's full, how hard it needs to grip is different to when it's empty, and for it to like know what's right and what's not just going to either break something or you're going to drop it makes the whole process very, very difficult. So yeah, not sure.
Yeah, and I've only worked with one family who are considering prosthetics just to the, you know, severity of the hand issues, but it's still, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. We've got a guy in the team who he was born with no forearms, so he's just got a tiny elbow joint on both sides and just stumps basically. And he doesn't use any prosthetics. He was born with it, and he finds it easier. He can do everything. He can drive, he can write, he can eat, he can play PlayStation, all with two stumps. And actually, I think they're fine. Prosthetics in general, unless it's because it's from an aesthetic point of view, just for the way people look, and if they want to look more balanced, fair enough. But actually, functionally, don't make much difference.
Okay, cool. And then there's a question just come direct to me. Are you aware of any relation between Poland syndrome and cardiac diseases?
I am not personally. I don't think there is. As far as I'm aware, it's a purely muscular thing and developmental thing. I wasn't aware of any kind of organ involvement with Poland syndrome. Doesn't mean you couldn't.
Can I just interrupt there?
Of course, yeah.
Kim? I've had a double hernia, which is also something associated with Poland syndrome, and I also suffer with chronic kidney disease, both of which are related to my condition.
There you go.
I'm not sure whether or not it's well known or not, but I thought it was worth just bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because, like I said, these kind of things is information we just don't have at the moment, because we just don't have enough of a database of people to say to show definite kind of cause and whatever. I mean, that kind of thing is really interesting, and hopefully, as we start to be able to audit some of these, get people more involved through the charity, we can start to even, if we can build databases of conditions that people have alongside their Poland syndrome and see if there are any clear things that kind of go along with each other. I wasn't aware of that, so that's really interesting.
It is, and it's key as well to like the scoliosis and all these different relations that we all want to understand more about. It comes back to the data, like Kim says. So when you see us talking about building a community register and collecting your data, it's really important that we as a community start championing this, because this is the key to answering all of these questions. This is the key to getting the early diagnosis, and then the key to also getting some doctors interested in people like Nan, who, later in life are now really suffering. And unless you put some figures and data in front of doctors, the reality is we just can't get them interested to make developments with it. So as boring as data is, it's going to unlock a lot for us. So whenever you see anything come up with us about the community register, the more you can get behind it and champion it for us, that would be amazing, because it is going to help us all in the long run.
I'd like to share my story if we've got time.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So I'm Rebecca. I'm 23. I live in Barnsley, which is next to Sheffield. Where he's from.
You're our cousin.
Yeah. I have the chest deformity. This one is like a normal boob. This one is like pretty much flat. I don't have the hand thing. But I didn't know that I had a chest deformity until I was going through puberty. So when I was like 16 or 17, I realized as I was going through high school that all the girls around me were growing boobs and I only had one. And I thought something wasn't right. And I asked my doctor, and my doctor said, that's normal. Every girl has
Everyone has a small.
Yeah. And I saw them for about 2 years. About every month I would go back and be like, it still hasn't grown. And they were like, it will grow. Obviously it didn't. But my doctor didn't know what Poland syndrome was. I had to Google it. I just looked on the internet, one boob, and some weird things came up, but Poland syndrome came up. And I thought that there was a picture of a woman that had Poland syndrome. And I was like, that looks like what I have. So I went to the doctor and I said, there's this thing called Poland syndrome. And the doctor said, okay, I'll have a few days. I'll look into it and then I'll get back to you. So the doctor went and researched and then came back and said, yes, I think this is what you have. And then he sent me to multiple different surgeons at different hospitals. And I didn't have the surgery. They offered to do like a boob job, but it would be NHS funded, so I wouldn't have to pay for it. And I know most people would jump at that chance for a free boob job, but I didn't really want surgery. I didn't feel like I needed to change it. I just wanted to know why I was the way that I am. So I spoke to some surgeons just to kind of get an idea of what Poland syndrome is, but most of them had never seen it. And some of them said, oh, no, you don't have it, you have something else, but they couldn't tell me what the other thing was. And then others said, you do, you don't, you do. And it was just, I think if more doctors knew about Poland syndrome, then they'd be able to diagnose it a lot quicker and you wouldn't have to be sent from hospital to doctor to different surgeons. The doctors kept pushing for me to have the surgery, which made me feel worse. It made me feel like something was wrong with me and the doctors felt like I needed to be fixed. Because every time I said no, they kept reminding me, you still have the option to have the surgery. You can still have a boob job. I'd go to the doctor about other things like, oh, I've got a pain in my leg. And they'd be like, remember, there's that boob job. And I was like, that's not what I'm here for. But it got very annoying over time. Luckily, I was never bullied for my chest. Most people didn't know that I had it. I didn't even know that I had it until I was in college. And something that when I first was looking into Poland syndrome, I read that it was most common in men. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have this thing that only men can get. And I was like so embarrassed. I didn't tell anybody. But when I went on the internet and I tried to search for women that have Poland syndrome, there was nothing. I couldn't see a single post anywhere where a woman had spoken out and said, I have Poland syndrome. So I thought, I just felt alone. And then one day I thought, if I'm feeling this way, there's got to be other girls out there who also have Poland syndrome, who also feel alone, and they're also looking on the internet and finding nothing. Maybe they can find me. So I posted about it on the internet. I made a YouTube video and I posted on Instagram and Facebook. And suddenly, that was years ago. And since then, I've had hundreds of messages from girls all over the world who say they have Poland syndrome and that I was the first person they found to have posted about it. And most of them don't tell anybody. I'm the first person they've told, or they didn't know that they had it. They knew that they had a deformity, but they didn't know the name of it because their doctors had never seen it before. So they often come to me for advice, and I don't really know. I'm not a medical professional, so I only know as much as what's on the internet. And I feel like doctors need to know more so that they can help these people, because I'm not a doctor and I feel like I'm being swamped with questions. And a lot of the time I'll tell them to come to Sam or to do their own research or to ask their doctors. But it does feel very disheartening when people come to me and they have like this, they expect me to be able to answer all their questions because I have it myself and I can't answer their questions. But I've made a WhatsApp group and it's just for women because a lot of them want to share private before and after pictures and get advice about surgery. So I've made this group and there's over 100 women in it and they're from all over the world, different ages. And if any of you ladies want to be added, you can message me and I'll add you. But it's just a nice place for women to kind of share advice and help each other when I'm not able to help them myself. But since talking out about it on the internet, I've had like documentaries made about me and my chest, and I've been interviewed for multiple magazines. I've been in the news a lot. Which I think is a good thing. It's good to, get the word out there. I'm glad that I'm able to kind of raise awareness. I just wish that more doctors knew about it and had more answers for people. And I think it's great what Sam and Kim are talking about, making this list and going to the NHS and being like, look how many people there are. You need to look into it because there's just not enough research. And like Ron said, he has these problems that could be related. And there was another question about, could it be related to your heart? And Could it be related to scoliosis? And I don't know. But I do have other deformities. I have femoral anteversion in my hips. So when I was developing in the womb, like when I was born and growing up, my hip, like my leg doesn't fit in my hip socket. It kind of dislocates when I walk, which is quite painful, obviously. I don't know if that's related to Poland syndrome at all. It's just another deformity that I just happen to have. I also have joint hypermobility syndrome in my hands, especially the left hand, which is on my left side. You can see my thumb is kind of pointed there. I can't like straighten it. And again, I don't know if that's related to Poland syndrome or not, but there is a lot of other health things that I've got going on. And it's interesting to hear everyone else's stories. Oh, I have, scoliosis and kidney problems. And I'm wondering now, like, I never really thought about it, but now that I'm getting older, I'm starting to wonder, are these problems going to kind of cause more issues for me later down the line? And could they be related to Poland syndrome? And I just wish that my doctors had been able to tell me all this and answer all these questions. And I just hope that no one else in future generations has to wonder and has to have these questions. I hope that in a couple of years, doctors will have the answers and people will not have to grow up wondering, getting old and thinking, is it Poland syndrome related? Is it not? Like, I just want everyone to, I wish that more people would take it seriously, more doctors would take it seriously and actually have answers for people. That's really all I want.
One of the things I've found out as I've got older, that my balance is not as good as it was. I wonder if it's because, of the asymmetry and the one is not completely balanced. In fact, yesterday I went out and I went a Perler. We were going out for lunch, and this is before I even had a glass of wine. So I think there must be something to do with Poland syndrome.
It's possible. It's so possible. I just wish that doctors could answer these questions, because obviously we all have different medical things also going on top of our Poland syndrome. And it would be nice to have an answer. I wish that doctors would take it more seriously. I hope that, if you have this list of people that have names in Poland syndrome, and then maybe also a list of all the other conditions that they have, doctors might be able to piece it together and realize there's a pattern. A lot of these people also have the same other condition.
And that's that's all part of the research, exactly, like that needs to be done to gather that information, because the reality is now the way the NHS works is Poland syndrome will be seen as a surgical problem. So your GP, if they are good enough to diagnose it, which most of them probably won't, the first thing they'll do is refer you on to a plastic surgeon or something surgical to operate on. And they are surgeons, they want to operate. That's just what they want to do. So if they're not going to operate, they're not interested, really. Like, they don't have any interest in the rest of it, which is kind of fair enough. That's their job. But there isn't a kind of an interim, which I think eventually, if we could have that, if we can gather enough information to show that would be beneficial, where it's more of an MDT kind of approach in terms of physios, whether that's osteopaths, all that kind of thing coming together to try and figure out a way to assess someone fully, first of all, to see if they have any other things, like Rebecca was saying, with a joint hypermobility, all that kind of stuff. And even if they're not related to the Poland syndrome, still that's something that would have been good to be able to get on top of at an early age. And I guess we're just MDT, multiple disciplinary teams. So lots of different skills, because like I said, normally you'll just get referred straight to the surgeon. The surgeon goes, I can do this operation or this operation. Do you want it? And you go, oh, I'm not sure. No. And they're like, right, fine. We'll come back to me when you want it. And then that's it, done, finished. Because actually, you can still, as far as the doctors are concerned, you'll live your life like whatever, go and do whatever you're going to do. And actually you do need more help, or could benefit from more help. So I think, that's hopefully in the long run what we're going to try and achieve if we can. It's going to take time, but I think Margaret's iPad wanted to ask a question.
That's right.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. It's actually Daniel, but this is my mum's iPad.
It's all right.
Thank you, Kim, and Rebecca, for your speech, and Ron and everyone. My name's Daniel, so I've got Poland syndrome, and wouldn't say suffering, but I've been dealing with it for many years now, since I was young. born, and it's just like a hole in the soul, and I've been getting sharp chest digging pains lately, and I might have to go to the doctor to get subscribe something for the pain relief, the pain. Yeah, I hate having it, but I've got to live with it. It affects my confidence. I've not had a girlfriend in 5 years. I'm still single. But my mum always says, "Oh, you're good looking, you'll get on." She's laughing, my mum. She thinks it's funny. Yeah,
so it's not a dating site then. No, go on.
It's not a dating site, apparently.
Sorry.
Is this my speech or yours, Mum?
No, go on. Sorry, go on.
So yeah, it's not really a question I need to ask, but I just wanted to get some stuff off my chest. And I not long ago met up with a girl with Poland syndrome, but she's not got back to me since. So just letting her get on with her life now. But it was nice to talk and chat and have a meal together and a drink. But yeah, it's just waiting now for my procedure. I'm not looking forward to it. I just want it out of the way. Yeah, I just hope people appreciate having a normal body and how it feels. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Bye.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
It's interesting. When I get a lot of questions from women who have Poland syndrome who send me messages on the internet, the most common question that anybody asks me is, how am I going to find a boyfriend that likes me? How will I ever find a man? I'm too embarrassed to take my shirt off in front of a guy. I don't want any guy to see my boobs. That kind of puts me off getting into a relationship. If I have kids, will it pass down to them? And I always tell them, like, the right man will like you no matter what. It doesn't matter if you have one boob or two boobs or three boobs. I'm sure the right person will like you for who you are. And if somebody cares more about how your boobs look than about how you feel and your emotions, and they're obviously not the right person for you anyway. But it does seem to be like a really difficult thing for women, because obviously having two boobs is often seen as the thing that men want in a woman. When you're growing up, you're always told, oh, men love women with two big boobs, and if you don't have that, then men won't like you. And I've never actually experienced that personally. Luckily, I've never found a man that's ever had a problem with my boobs, but I understand why a lot of women are scared of opening up to a man and why they don't want men to see their boobs. And I think I think just people with Poland syndrome know about Poland syndrome. Most, I guess you could say normal, I don't like the word normal, but normal people will never hear of it. And I think that if it was, more well known between people, men or boys, I think it's usually younger guys that could say something mean to a girl about it. I'm sure more mature guys that have grown up don't really care about what women's boobs look like. It seems to be more of a teen boy thing. But I hope that, if men or boys knew more about Poland syndrome and the things that girls go through with it, then maybe they'd be more understanding and kind to women that have it. I've spoken to some girls and they said, oh, I did show a guy my boobs and he laughed at me. He didn't like me, or my boyfriend left me when he found out about it. And I just think it's so horrible that people have to go through that. And I can't understand it myself, because I would never judge somebody based on something that they can't control. But I spoke to a lot of girls that ended up having surgery. They ended up having boob jobs and saving a lot of money to pay for boob jobs, but just solely because they wanted a man to like them. They didn't do it because they wanted the surgery. They did it because they felt like they had to do it, because otherwise they wouldn't find love. Right. And in years to come, they've ended up regretting it, having it removed, had complications. And it's I just find it really sad, the things that women have to go through and the things that women put themselves through just in the hopes of impressing men. I just wish that women would like themselves more the way that they are and wouldn't change themselves, and then the right man will come along and find you. And I'm sure men probably go through the same thing. I wouldn't know, probably men with Poland syndrome might also feel embarrassed about their chest and not worry that a future partner might judge them based on their chest looking a bit different or their hands looking a bit different. I don't know. I don't really know how I'm trying to end this conversation. I just wanted to say it's just something that I've personally found when speaking to women. That's like the main worry for women with Poland syndrome that I found is what men will think.
I think Richard Stott put that quite bluntly when he was talking on his comedy show, where he was sort of seeing girls and stuff like that, and he would almost put his hand out and say, "It's okay, you can hold the other one if you want." You know, and he almost like made a kind of joke out of it to sort of break the ice. And then he just said what you said there. If your partner or the person you're kind of seeing can see through that, then they're more suited for you than people that aren't. And I think that was a really nice way of putting it, actually, that, you know, if you don't make a big thing about it and people accept you, then brilliant. That's going for you.
You know, there was a time when women didn't shake hands. And I can tell you what year women started shaking hands, because I was in Washington, D.C., and I did a lot of these things, you know, formal things, and men started putting their hands out. And I suddenly said, well, then I have to do something. And I just put my hand out, shook hands, and they would say, oh, you have such nice small hands. And I'd say, yes, I do, and go on. And I realized that, you know, it was a momentary thing, but it was different for women years ago because we didn't shake hands formally. Yeah. So it's a question of just going for it, I think. And people just aren't focused on it. I mean, they don't obsess. It's a momentary thing. And then if you go on with things, generally, appropriate people go on with things too. So that was my introduction to shaking hands.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's really just inspiring to see you being so open, but both of you, you know, being so young. Becca, particularly, I was lucky. I'm American, obviously, but I live in Manchester now. But I grew up in Ohio, and I was diagnosed early, and they told me I had scoliosis, and I remember I had a back brace when I was younger that I slept in. I think they thought that would help. I'm not sure if it did. And I did have a breast surgery when I was like 19, but I never talked about it until I had kids and had to breastfeed. And it was actually talking to the lactation consultant was the first time that I talked about it, you know, and because I was trying to breastfeed with one breast. And I think, Robbie, what I would say to your kids, like everyone else, my mother said, oh, you should be lucky, you should be, and it didn't feel very nurturing. Like I knew that was true. And I do, and on one hand, I'm glad she said that, because I do think I've never let anything stop me, because I know I'm lucky and this kind of thing. On the other hand, it's not a very nurturing thing to say in the moment when you just want a prom dress that doesn't look, you know, but I think, so that's one thing. But I think the thing is, I kept it secret because I could, because my hand's not affected. So because I kept it secret, it was my own shame that really stopped me from things. So seeing people like Becca just talk about it so openly at her age, like I talk about it openly now, and I've written blogs about it now, but that wasn't until I was 40 years old, you know, like, and having the confidence at 23 to talk about it and be open is unbelievable to me. So I think, you know, that, and Kim, even all of you, you know, like, being so young and just talking about it, and your parents like Robbie and Sam, you know, being open with your kids and having them not have shame, I think is what I would say is, like, you know, my parents did a great job in lots of things. They certainly didn't limit me and got me all the help I needed, had diagnoses, had a surgery, but I carried shame because no one encouraged me to be open about it. Like, even, you know, and I covered it up for a long time. Whereas now, like Becca says, now I'm like, and as soon as I started talking about it openly, as soon as I started talking about, like, because I teach parents and young children, and now that I talk about like my breastfeeding experience and this kind of stuff, I just feel better as a person, and I feel more secure and more, so I think it's wonderful that you all have found that out early on, is what I want to say. So that is exciting, and I think the future is so exciting that everyone's going to help make awareness so it doesn't keep happening, the cycle. So thank you all for sharing.
Brilliant, thank you.
Awesome. Shirley, Kim, are you all right for 10 minutes? I know you've got to get to training, haven't you? You're okay. Yeah, cool. Cool.
Hiya, thank you. Yeah, I put my hand up. I'll work out how to put my hand down next. So I'm older than nearly everybody else, I think. And I've always known I've had Poland syndrome. And when I was 16, I had an implant because I was visibly different and I didn't like it. And then it failed when I was 24 and I had it removed. And then I discovered about the tram flap operation. And so when I was 39, I had that surgery and I have amazing cleavage. But I did it for me, not for a bloke. When I talked to my husband about it, he was like, I don't need you to have it. I'm like, I'm not having it for you, pal. I'm having it for me because I want to have it. And I don't wear baggy clothes anymore. I wear clothes that fit me. I love how I look. And it has helped me greatly in how I feel about myself because I can't see my left foot anymore. I've always been able to see my left foot and I can't, and that's just joyous.
Must be some implant.
Well, it's not an implant. That's the amazing thing. It's me. It's
brilliant.
Fat and stomach tissue. Right. Okay. So I'm just going to, there you go.
Look at that. Wow.
I know.
Bravo.
And that's all me. And I love it. And I have become quite a slapper in my clothes because I can. So I do. That's why
you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shirley. I think it's so important to keep sharing that, isn't it? It really is. Oh, that has been awesome to get everyone together. I don't want to keep anyone for too much longer. Does anyone else want to say anything or ask any more questions before we finish up? We good? Okay. Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for taking the time out your training.
No problem.
Talk to us. It's been brilliant. I think it will hopefully be the first of many times all of us get together like this. Hopefully.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to like ping me a message on Instagram or anything, or over to Sam to send to me, I'll try and answer them if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to help. So yeah, just let me know.
Good luck with the Olympics.
Yeah, keep an eye out. You might see me on TV.
We'll be watching.
We'll all be behind you, keeping our fingers crossed for you.
Yeah. Kim, can you get us any tickets?
I'll do my best, mate. I don't know. The Japanese are very they're not being very forthcoming with their invites at the moment. So.
Thank you for everyone's share tonight.
Yeah, thanks
everyone.
Yeah,
nice to speak to everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah.
Rio, can you wave?
Bye.
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 See ya.
Bye.